Hi everyone, welcome to our 12-part series, Inside the One Big Beautiful Bill Act. I'm Kenny Birch, a tax director in our mortgage banking tax practice. And throughout this series, we're breaking down the most important tax changes under OB3 and what they mean for you. These updates can have a real impact on planning, compliance, and your bottom line. So if you want to stay ahead and make informed decisions, you're in the right place. Let's take a look at miscellaneous itemized deductions and Schedule A limitations. What's staying, what's changing, and what it means for high-income taxpayers with Caden Magnuson, an expert in our mortgage banking tax practice. So Caden, what are miscellaneous itemized deductions and the Schedule A limitation?
Miscellaneous itemized deductions are deductions that were subject to a 2% limitation on personal tax returns. Examples of these expenses are tax prep fees, unreimbursed employee expenses, and investment expenses. These types of deductions were mostly removed by the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act in 2017, but were set to return in 2026. Schedule A limitations are limitations on the amount of itemized deductions a high-income taxpayer could claim. Originally called the P's limitation, this would limit itemized deductions by the lesser of 4% of AGI or 80% of total itemized deductions. It was also originally removed by the TCJA and set to return in 2026.
Since these items have been removed since 2017, do taxpayers need to do any additional planning?
With respect to miscellaneous deductions that were set to return in the 2025 tax year, these are permanently suspended, so you'll still not be able to use these. However, one bigger change will be for taxpayers who fall in the highest tax bracket of 37%. A new Schedule A itemized deductions limitation has started as of 1/1/26. New limitations are based on the tax benefit of the itemized deductions allowable. Allowable deductions are now reduced by 2/37 of the lesser of the amount of total itemized deductions, or the amount of taxpayers' income exceeds the start of the 37% tax bracket. For individuals, this would be $640,600. For those filing jointly, it would be $768,700.
Thanks, Caden. Can you provide an example of how this limitation would work?
So, say your income for the year was $900,000, and you are filing jointly with $100,000 in itemized deductions. Using this new limitation, you would have to reduce your usable itemized deductions by the lesser of 2/37 times your total itemized deductions, which would create a limitation of $5,405, or 2/37 times your total income less the start of the 37% tax bracket, which would create a limitation of $7,097. In this case, your usable itemized deductions would be $94,595.
That was great, Caden. Are there any other changes or notes for Schedule A deductions you wanted to share?
Yes, one that is somewhat helpful for taxpayers that itemize is that OB3 sets the AGI limit for unreimbursed medical expenses at 7.5% permanently. These had been set to jump to 10% this year. Only amounts in excess of these limits would be deductible. An example of this would be for someone with $100,000 in AGI. If they were to have $15,000 of unreimbursed medical expenses, without OB3, only $5,000 would be deductible. But with the permanent limit, $7,500 would be deductible.
Got it. Overall, can you tell us how these limits affect taxpayers?
For the most part, OB3 maintains the status quo. However, with the new limit on Schedule A itemized deductions, high-income taxpayers will not be able to claim as much in itemized deductions as there were no limits from 2017 through the 2024 tax year. It will be important for taxpayers to plan to find ways to minimize the impact of this limitation, such as reviewing investments, retirement plan contributions, and business tax planning. For example, analyzing if there are more PTET elections worth filing.
Okay, so just to clarify, OB3 sounds like it just extended or made permanent a lot of provisions included in TCJA. Is that correct?
Yes, most updates from the OB3 are just continuations of the TCJA and continued suspensions of certain miscellaneous itemized deductions that were set to expire on January 1st. However, with the updated Schedule A limitations, high-income taxpayers will once again face limits on itemized deductions.
Thanks, Caden. Before we go, is there any final advice you'd like to pass along to taxpayers?
I would recommend that high-income taxpayers meet with their CPAs to discuss just how they will handle their itemized deductions for the years going forward, And if they were set to have a lot of itemized deductions, plan to increase estimates to adjust to the change.
Thanks, Caden. Really appreciate you sharing those details on itemized deductions and the Schedule A limitation. Don't forget, there are more videos in this series covering other important updates, so please check those out when you can.